Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to go ahead and get online. So those of you who are here early could get yourself situated. If you're already here, hello, good evening. Go ahead and say hello to me back. You can actually, if you look to this side here, you'll see that there's an area where you can actually write me a message. So if you want to say hello, let me know who you are and where you're from. I'd love to say hello back to you. And so I just wanted to open this up so people can kind of come on in. So please say hello. Let me know where you're from. And I'd love to say hi back to you. Get myself all set up here. Where are you from? Last time we had people from multiple countries from all over the world. It was super, super cool. Turn my volume off. I have my phone over here so I can watch too. And that way, if something goes wrong, I'll be able to see it as well so that I'm not talking to myself. Hi, Mary from Arizona. I'm actually heading over to Arizona next. I have some friends that live out there as well. I love Arizona. So beautiful. Lisa from Lake Stevens, Washington. That sounds beautiful. I've actually not been to Washington State yet, but that is on my list. Julie from Oklahoma. Hi, Julie. And Jidka from Oklahoma. Oh, no, from Jersey. Sorry. Hi. What exit, right? San Diego. Hi, Sheila. Hi, Maja. Brittany from Pittsburgh, PA. I went to Carnegie Mellon. I love Pittsburgh. Tuesday from North Carolina. And is it Maja from Serbia? That's so cool. Jerry, hi, Jerry from Charlotte. Ursula from Mexico. Andrea from Peru. Oh, my goodness. Dawn from Savannah, Georgia. Hello. I have not repeated one location yet. You guys are so awesome. Stephanie from Ann Arbor, Michigan. And Sybil from East Bay, California. How awesome. Hi, Tina out there in Cleveland. We have not had a duplicate yet. Cynthia in Scottsdale. Nice to see you. Oh, so nice to see everybody here. We'll just start letting this room fill up. And it looks like you guys found the chat. So thank you. Figured I would open the door so you guys get situated. If you haven't done so yet, this is a great time to go ahead and grab yourself a pad of paper and a pen, maybe a glass of water. We're going to get to work in here, and I want you to be able to take notes. I want you to be able to get all the information that you need and have that with you. So if you haven't gotten your paper yet, do that. If you've got a TV on or distractions going, shut all that down. This is going to be an hour dedicated to you and your life and your health, and I want you to pay as much attention as you can. So we got to shut off Facebook, and we got to focus. All right. Anybody else want to say hi? Let me look over here. Hi, Leah from 29 Palms, California. Marcia from Sacramento. Lavanya from Toronto. Hello in Toronto. How cool. Oh, hi, Kirsty from Alberta. You guys are all from different spots. I have not seen a repeat of City yet. And once again, we are completely international, and that is so cool. I know some of you, it's the middle of the night, and you still showed up live. That's really impressive. Really, really impressive. So how cool is that? So anybody else who's just getting into the room, if you want to say hello to me and say where you're from, there's a chat area over here where you can go ahead and look at the chat area. And we just got a couple minutes before we're going to get started. I just want to get a chance for everybody to kind of get situated in here and say hello to all of you. Hi, Jose from Watsonville. Hi, Jorge from Mexico. How neat. I'm still working on getting my book translated. It's not easy to find a translator. And I speak Spanish, but not well enough to make sure that my book is translated properly. And I don't want someone to just use Google Translate, you know what I mean? So I need to find somebody good to do that. But I'm glad that you're here. And Corinna from Texas, howdy. I live in Texas now, in Austin, although I'm in California right now. And Shania here in Los Angeles. I'm actually in Seal Beach right now. I just got back from teaching in Palm Springs, and then from just was in Vegas for a couple of days. And I'm literally here in Seal Beach at my in-laws' place. But I wanted to make sure that I continued to teach and help you guys. And so I locked everyone out of the room, and I'm in here teaching for the next hour. Let's see. Hi, Judy in Lincoln Park, Michigan, and Mona from Tucson. Oh, I love Tucson. It's so gorgeous, especially when the sun's coming up. Oh, my goodness, with the mountains. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, awesome. Let me do a time check here. All right, we are almost ready to get started. Just a few more seconds here. And let me move my little thing over here so I can look a little better. I just have my own phone set up so that I can see if for some reason my video stops. Of course, if any of you have any other problems, hi, Brittany from Pittsburgh. If you guys have any other problems or have issues seeing me, please use the chat to let me know. Z, you just found me 30 minutes ago. Holy crap. And here you are. You're here with me. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, Chris from Has Been. Awesome, awesome. All right. Well, it is just about 7 o'clock right now. Happy New Year. All right. So before we get started, first of all, I just want to welcome all of you guys here. Listen, I know what it's like to be super busy. I got to California at 3 in the morning this morning. I've been traveling from city to city. It is not easy. To take time out of your night or out of your day, depending on where you are in the world right now, to sit down with me. And I'm really, really, really grateful that you're here. And not just because I'm not sitting talking to myself, but because showing up for yourself. And this class series that I'm doing might be the very thing that changes your life and your health forever. And you're taking the time to be here and to do this. So I want you to feel really, really good about yourself that you're taking this time. So I just want to honor you and let you know how much what a big undertaking I know this is for you, and how much I appreciate that you're doing this for yourself. So that's first off. Second off, if you've never used Webinar Jam before, welcome to it. I really, really love it because I actually started using it 2 webinars ago because my last webinar program I was using, I didn't know it maxed out at 100. And 300 people tried to get onto a webinar and 200 of them couldn't get on. And I was heartbroken. And actually there was 1,000 people signed up for the last one. There's no limit. As many people as want to be here in this class can be here and nobody's going to get kicked off. So Webinar Jam is pretty awesome for that reason. Now, I want you to just get oriented here. Now, if you look to the side here, there you'll see on the very bottom, there's an area that says write your message here. Now, those of you who have already said hi, thank you for doing that. You've already found that. Now, what I want you to notice is there's next to where it says write your message here, there's a little bubble, okay? It looks like a cartoon talk bubble. If you click on that, it'll actually ask you if you want to chat or ask a question, all right? If while I'm talking, you have a question for me that you'd like me to answer at the Q&A. So when I'm done teaching today, I'm going to go do a Q&A. I'm going to stay on live with you guys. If you have a question you want me to answer in the Q&A, please click ask a question and type it. And what happens is when the webinar is over, I can click on a link that I have and see all of your questions. And literally every time I answer a question, I can click on it that it was answered and I'll be able to go right down the list. If you write your questions in the chat over here, I may or may not see it, because the chat is more for saying hello and saying hi to me, saying hi to each other, asking a question. Like someone just said, the video is freezing intermittently. As far as I know, my video is live streaming just fine on the phone I'm using to watch myself. So you might have low internet. You might want to check, Jerry, if you're watching this on a phone, try with or without, maybe just try it using your phone connection versus using wireless. If you're using the internet on a computer, you might want to move over closer to your to where your internet comes from. So that's a great use of that space. Now, while I'm teaching, a lot of times people help each other with those things because I don't want to interrupt a class that has hundreds of people in it to answer one person's question. But that's a great thing to post on the side. Sometimes people will just post like happiness or woot woot or I love this part or something like that. Awesome, awesome. That's all great. But if you have a question you want me to answer, the Q&A, you want to go to that bubble down there where it says write your message here, click on the little bubble, and instead click on question and write the question. And at the end, I'll be able to see all of your questions and answer them, because it's very, very important to me that you guys understand this information so that you can use it to change your life. All right. So that said, I want to go and get started. So whether you're here because you currently have an illness, or you know somebody who has an illness, or maybe you're someone who just loves to learn about health and loves to help others, you're in the right place. My name is Dr. Brooke Goldner, and I want to welcome you to the 6 Easy Steps to Healing with Supermarket Foods. Tonight, we'll be doing the first 3 steps. Now, many of you already know me. Z just wrote over there that just heard about me 30 minutes ago. Hallelujah, right? But some of you guys already saw, you either saw me on TV, I was just on the Home and Family show, or you saw me in a movie, or maybe on Facebook, or you read my book. And so you guys all know me and you know my story. But some of you never heard about me till a few minutes ago when someone said, hey, you should go listen to this webinar. So for those of you who have not heard of me, I just want to tell you a little bit of about myself and how I came to do this. And if you've already heard it, well, you get to enjoy the story again. Yes. So so I am a board certified physician, and I've been practicing medicine for quite a long time now, about 12 years. But I've published multiple best-selling books. I've been in documentaries. I have taught in colleges, in hospitals, in conferences all around the country, international conferences. And, you know, I teach people how to reverse disease using supermarket foods, using nutrition. And before I ever became a doctor or ever wrote a book or done any of the amazing things I've had the opportunity to do, I was a patient. When I was 16 years old, I was diagnosed with something called systemic lupus erythematosus. I had stage 4 kidney failure. And at the time I was diagnosed with lupus, this was, let me see, I'm going to count for myself here. So this is now 25 years ago. We don't need to count these things, right? So, but at the time that I was 16, they didn't have all the fancy medicines they had now. They put me on high dose steroids. They put me on all sorts of other pills. I remember I had 7 pills total I had to take a day. And even with that, they said it wasn't going to stop the kidney failure. And they gave me 6 months before my kidneys completely shut down. And they said at that point, I might not live. And at best, I could hope for dialysis. And the only option they gave me that could possibly save my kidneys and save me from dialysis or death was using chemotherapy. Now, some of you guys are familiar with using Cytoxan chemotherapy for lupus, but back then it was experimental. I was a lab rat. And so they knew that it could help shut the immune system off, because usually when we use chemotherapy, we use it for cancer, right? And the reason we use it for cancer is it's a poison that helps kill off those cells that are growing quickly. But one of the side effects is that it shuts the immune system off. And that's why a lot of people who have cancer actually die of infections, because their immune system gets shut off by the chemo. Well, with lupus or other autoimmune disease, our immune system's actually what's attacking our organs, right? My immune system was killing my kidneys. So they thought they could use the chemotherapy to do a little Control-Alt-Delete, shut my immune system off and let it reboot itself and see if that would work. Now, we still use Cytoxan chemotherapy as part of lupus treatment and as part of other autoimmune disease treatments, but normally it's used for a short period of time. When I was using it, they actually didn't know how long to use it for. And I actually ended up getting chemotherapy for 2 full years straight, from 16 to 18 years old. And so that was my life. 16 to 18 was taking enormous amounts of pills, chemotherapy once a month, and at the same time, trying to finish high school, trying to plan my future. And one thing that I can really recommend, you know, my family is extremely, just incredible. And my mother never let me embrace illness as my identity. She wouldn't say, you know, that you're sick. It's all right, you need to overcome this illness. You know, it's not who I was. So I always recommend, if there's one thing I can help you with in this moment, don't take on the illness. I'm a diabetic. I'm somebody, I'm an autoimmune disease patient, right? That I am. When you take something on as your identity, it's very hard to let it go, rather than it be a hurdle that you're trying to overcome. And so she never gave me an opportunity to say, do you need time off from school? Are you going to go to college? Oh no, it was, how are you going to get your AP chemistry exam studied for before your next chemo treatment? And which college are you going to go to? And it was really beautiful, because I focused all of my energy whenever I wasn't too sick to to sit up, or I wasn't vomiting from the chemo. I was reading my textbooks backwards and forwards. And I actually graduated in the top 10 of my class and got a scholarship to my first choice of college, Carnegie Mellon, in spite of having those 2 years of being so sick. And I really believe that you can't let your illness stop you from pursuing your dreams. You have to keep moving forward with your life, and don't let any diagnosis stop you from doing that, because you have a purpose for being here and you have gifts that you still need to give. And even though I was really focused, and even though I tried not to focus on my illness, it was really, really hard for my family. And I I remember my mom never let me see how much it hurt her, but I could still hear her crying at night in the room with my dad with the door closed. And I will never, to my dying day, forget the image of my grandmother on her knees, just asking God to spare my life and to take hers instead. And I still feel like illness sometimes impacts the people who love us even more than it impacts us personally. And I don't want to get too heavy, so I'm going to give you the ending. I'm going to give away the ending, let you guys know I made it and I'm healthy and I'm here. And that's the reason I'm teaching you today. But I want you to know where I came from. And by the way, the chemo did work. I went into a remission that saved my kidneys, and I went into a remission. Now, remission is when you still have a disease, take blood tests, you have it, you still have some symptoms of it, but it's not currently killing you, right? It's stable. So I was in remission in that my kidneys were stable. However, I still had low complement. I still had high levels of dsDNA, just not as high as they were before. They were at a stable lower level. My ANA was still positive. That is remission. That's the definition of remission. And I was able to stay in remission through college because I watched my sleep and I watched my stress. Heck, I had no stress. Life with no chemo is just, wow. When I only had to study and I didn't have to study and do chemo, there was no stress. I was happy as a clam. And so I was able to maintain my remission through college. And then I did something that my doctors told me I shouldn't do. They said, avoid stress, always get enough sleep. And so what do? I went to medical school. But I felt in my heart that I knew, having been diagnosed with this disease and such severity of disease at 16. I mean, I had the rash across my face. I had arthritis throughout my whole body. I had migraines that would have me vomiting for days. And I had the rapidly progressive stage 4 kidney failure. I knew from a young age I had to confront the idea that I may not live as long as other people. But I wanted my life to matter. And for me personally, what makes my life feel like it matters is helping people. I'm born to help people. And I just thought if I could use my experiences of illnesses to help other people learn how to still embrace their lives and not suffer, then even if my life was short, it would still matter. And so I decided to go to medical school in spite of my illness. And I got sick in school. There's just no way. I mean, when I was a medical student, there was no limit. Now there's laws that say you can't work somebody more than 80 hours straight as an intern or medical student. But when I was a student, that law wasn't in place. I was working 100-hour weeks at one point. And I ended up getting sick again. And at one point I collapsed in one of the clinics, and it turned out that I was sending blood clots into my head. I developed antiphospholipid antibody, specifically anticardiolipin antibody. And I was sending blood clots into my brain. I'd been getting double vision before that, before I actually collapsed. And at that point, I was put on blood thinners that I had to inject into myself every day. And they told me, you know what, that's really going to be your life. You'll never get off the blood thinners, because if you stop the blood thinners, you're going to have a stroke. But if you take blood thinners and you bang your head, you can have a bleeding stroke, right? And they told me, you can never have children. You wouldn't survive it, and you wouldn't even be able to carry a baby to term anyway. And at that point, being a fourth-year medical student, I also understood more deeply than ever how serious the disease was. When I was 16, there was no Google. I'm showing you how old I am. There was no Google. I didn't know. And at that point, as a medical student, I knew that, especially having developed the anticardiolipin antibody and having it be so active again, that my life was going to be shorter. But I took about 2 weeks to mourn that. I think it's important that we let ourselves feel the pain of things when it happens, not take it on as your identity, but breathe and flow and feel sad for it. And then I went back to this place where I've always lived, a place of complete gratitude that I'm still here and I'm not dead yet. And I'm about to graduate medical school. I had a year left to go medical school, and I was going to live my dream. And I just thought, how many people live to 100 and never go after their dreams? So I'm grateful for my life. And I actually was the happiest I'd ever been after that point, even though I'd had the relapse and I was back taking more medicines again. Just feeling the gratitude for what I had allowed me to feel amazing happiness. in spite of my illness. And this is really important. You know, I had somebody just ask me in my rapid healing group. So I have a rapid healing group online where I help you for 6 weeks straight in a group setting. And we have a secret Facebook group, and it's just a beautiful experience. And somebody actually asked me, you know, is there a chance that I could completely be off meds and be able to have happiness and hope? And my answer was, yes, I believe there's a chance you could be off meds, but you don't have to wait for that to have happiness and hope. Find that in the moment, because there's always reasons for joy. So anyway, what happened after this was actually when my miracle started. And I'm going to share my screen with you so I can show you that. So I'm my 4th year of medical school. I'm literally the happiest I've ever been in my life, even though I had to take the shots and everything like that. I got my first choice residency at UCLA Harbor. And I just was, oh my God, I was living my dream. And 2 months before I actually move to California, I'm going to All right, you guys, I'm going to try this again. I'm not sure why it wasn't working. Okay. All right, let's try this one more time. Application window. I'm hoping that comes on for you guys. And I'm looking for it on my screen as well. I think we got this now. Yay! All right, we're all here. I'm so sorry about that, guys. That has actually never happened before. I'm not sure why that happened now, but as long as you guys can see me and hear me, can I get a see? Yes, I see you before I keep going. All right, good. Woo! All right, you can hear me. Yes, you can't see me, but you should be able to see my slides, right? So I wanted to show you my slides. Okay. I am so sorry about that. Can you stand the anticipation? I told you I was going to tell you something, and then I made you wait. So I'm so sorry about that, guys. But we are back in business. All right. So what I was going to say is, oh, look at that. There's a typo. So my life actually changed right as my 4th year happened, and I met this man right here. Now, some of you guys might already know him. This is my husband, Thomas Tadlock, and he is the most amazing person I've ever met in my life to this day. He is just gorgeous from the inside out. And we fell in love so fast. And it was hard to believe that could happen. I was moving to California to go to my residency, and I fell in love. And within a month of meeting, he was already talking about marriage. And I had to tell him that, you know, I have this disease. I know we're only 28 years old, but I have this disease called lupus. I'm never going to be able to have your children. I'm going to die at a young age, and you're going to end up taking care of me before I die too young. I know you love me, and I also understand if this is not what you want to sign up for. And what he said to me was that he'd rather live a short life with me than a lifetime with anybody else. And he wanted to just give me the best life he possibly could. And so I went, oh my God, let's get married. And so he actually sold everything, his business, his house, and he moved to California with me. I called it, he pulled a Goodwill Hunting, and he just went to see about a girl across the country from Pittsburgh to California. And he's a celebrity trainer. A lot of you might have seen him in many different places. He's just an extraordinary man, and he's well known in the fitness industry. When I met him, he was training people who were going on MTV, who needed a six-pack in 3 weeks. He knew how to do that. And he's a scientist. He also went to Carnegie Mellon, and he's a scientist who understands how cells require nutrition in order to create a fast metabolism. He actually has a book coming out soon that's all about metabolism, how to create a miracle metabolism. Well, I wanted to look amazing for our wedding. You know, I trained my whole life for a white coat, but I'd never actually imagined a white dress. And so I wanted to look like one of those MTV models. And so he put me on a diet, and this is what changed my life. So I was a vegetarian since I was a kid because I loved animals, but I still ate dairy products and eggs. And my husband, he knew that dairy products is actually the most fattening thing on the planet. And so he made me give up dairy in order to train me, but I wasn't willing to eat meat. And so he had to change his program around where it still had high amounts of water and omega-3s and high amounts of vegetables and all those things, but no meat, no dairy. And what ended up happening was this. So I'm going to show you, here's what I look like right before I started training. Now, I look pretty good for Pittsburgh. I wasn't quite LA hot yet, but I was doing all right for Pittsburgh. That's actually not him. That's another friend of mine. That's what I look like right before. And I went on the nutrition program and actually worked out less than I had before, but his exercise programs are really amazing. And I went on, so I'd always been exercising, but I changed my diet. That's all I changed. And within 3 months, I had dropped from a size 11 to a size 3. And not only that, I felt the most amazing I'd ever felt in my life. I'll show you this. 3.5 months later, we went to get married in Maui, and that was us at Twin Falls in Maui. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and that's what we looked at. That was the day before we got married. And it was just, we looked amazing, and we also felt amazing. For the first time since I was 16 years old, I had zero arthritis. I was an intern working 30-hour shifts multiple days a week, and yet I never, I could leave my internship working 30-hour shift and then go right to the gym and work out. And I didn't feel tired. I didn't have headaches, no migraines, no arthritis. I couldn't remember ever feeling that good. And so I decided I was going to keep eating that way just because I felt so good. And then I went to my doctor right before we left for Maui, and it was a brand new doctor in California he had all my charts, so he knew my information, but he'd never seen me before. And he thought that the lab had made an error in my labs. And when we went back, he retested my labs, and the problem was that they were testing negative for lupus. My ANA was negative, my anti-dsDNA was negative, my complement was normal. They thought it was a lab error. I came back again, and those were still negative. And then on top of that, my cholesterol, which they told me had been genetically high, nothing to do with all my cheese, that was down to normal. My blood pressure dropped 30 points. And this year will be 13 years now that I've been completely 100% lupus free. And all I did was change my diet. So my husband and I went back, and we've reverse engineered what we did in order to really simplify and nail down exactly what foods were causing me to get sick and which ones caused me to get better. One way we knew I was definitely healed was the fact that 4 years later, that's us at our wedding. I love it. 4 years later, I did what they told me I should never do. I got pregnant, and all of the doctors told me they wanted me to go to high risk OB. High risk OB sent me back. They said that it was going to kill me, that the lupus was going to come back, but the lupus never came back. And I had a healthy little boy. That's my son, Solomon. And 4 years after that, I'll tell you this. So I had my son, Solomon, and this is when we knew for sure. And you can get all the details. My book about lupus, I go into my story into even more detail. But after I had my son, 9 days later, it was my birthday. And I was back in my pre-pregnancy clothes 9 days after I gave birth. And that's when we really knew that my body was not a normal body anymore. Not only did I not have any lupus symptoms, but my metabolism was so fast that I could literally just shed the baby weight within a matter of days. And I felt amazing. And we continued to move on from that. 4 years later, I did it again. That was literally the 2 days before I gave birth to my son, Alex. And these are my beautiful, beautiful little boys. And because of this story, because of the fact that my husband and I were able to accidentally reverse the disease that almost robbed me of the most beautiful life I get to live, we decided to retire from our careers to dedicate our lives to teaching people how to heal. Because, you know, my husband says he doesn't want anyone to ever lose the woman they love or the person they love. And I want every one of you to grow old with the person you love and to be able to have a family or to do whatever it is you want to do. You know, I have people who were told that people who could barely walk who are running marathons now. Whatever your dream is, I want you to be able to have that. And that's why I'm doing this right now. And the fact that I've been so vocal and I've helped so many people from literally all over the world. My office, I'm kind of a doctor from the future. I see everyone over Skype from wherever I am in the country. I can see people and help them. And so I've helped people from all over the world reverse all kinds of diseases, whether it's lupus, Sjogren's, scleroderma, MS, reverse tumors, cervical dysplasia. I mean, just endless amounts of diseases, because all we do is teach people how to feed their cells in a way that their cells do their job better. And because I've been so vocal and so successful at helping people, I've gotten a lot of attention over the past few years. Many of you may have already read my best-selling book, Goodbye Lupus. I also have another best-selling book, which is a green smoothie recipe book. I've been featured on the front cover of Vegan Health and Fitness magazine twice. And actually, I just did a photo shoot for another magazine my husband and I are going to be on the cover of coming up in the fall. You might have seen me in the movie Eating You Alive. If you haven't seen this movie, go see it. It'll change your life. I was recently in the Home and Family Show and so many other places. And, you know, and really for me, it's about getting the message out. That's the only reason. If someone asks me if I want to do an interview, I always say yes, because I want to make sure there might be one person who sees it and it saves their life. And so that's what I am doing this, and that's why I'm here with you guys today. And so what I want to do is I want to take the time to really go into the 6 steps to healing with supermarket foods, and I want to do it in detail. Now, as I mentioned, these steps are already talked about in my book, Goodbye Lupus, but I literally get messages from people who say they can't afford a $15 book. So I don't ever want money to be the reason somebody can't get their health back. That's like a knife through my stomach. So I always give the information away for free. And some of you guys have been to my webinars before and you know this. I give away all the information for free. I don't hold any of it back. There's no secret that I'm not going to tell you about unless you hire me, you know, or you buy my book or something. I give all the information away for free. And so, you know, the only time people ever invest money in me is because they literally want my help in order to put it into place. But the information is yours. I want you to use it. So I want you to have a pen and paper. I want you to do this so you can get your health back, okay? So this is what we're going to do. What I decided to do is I'm going to do the first 3 steps today. The second 3 steps are going to be on Monday. And then the following Thursday, I'm going to show you case studies of real people that I've healed from all different kinds of disease and tell you exactly what they ate so you'll be able to do that too. So I hope you guys are ready. I'm really excited to do this with you guys. Let's get going through here. So the first thing, so here's how easy it is. For me, it has to be easy and simple. You know, I'm the first generation born in America. My family's Holocaust survivors. My mother was born in Poland after the war and came here as a kid. So my family's immigrants. And so I've always had an ability, I think because of that reason, to take really complicated concepts and explain them in a way that anybody can understand it. Because if you don't understand it, you can't do it. So I break it down into 6 steps to make it really, really easy for you to follow. So steps 1, 2, and 3, which we're going to do today, is eliminate inflammatory foods. All right? Steps 1, 2, and 3, eliminate the inflammatory foods. And steps 4 through 6, which we're going to do on Monday, is add the healing foods. That's it. Okay? Now, when I talk about inflammatory foods, I want you guys to understand what I mean. Inflammation gets a bad rap. Inflammation is a normal process of how our immune system engages in the healing process. It's why if you bang your knee, it swells up. That's inflammation, but it's happening because your body is all of your immune cells are going to that location to try to fix it, okay? But the problem comes when the immune system can never shut off, and that's called chronic inflammation. If you've got chronic inflammation, like you kept banging your knee in the same spot every day and your immune system never got to shut off, eventually the immune cells themselves would destroy the healthy tissue too, and now you've got a disease. That's happening internally in people who have autoimmune disease or even cancer or diabetes or heart disease, is that you've got chronic inflammation, your immune system never shuts off, and eventually it stops working properly and becomes the reason that you're sick. So in chronic inflammation, the inflammation itself becomes the disease, and then it damages cells and it triggers your genes for illness. So we all have different genes for illness, but you don't have to trigger them. What triggers them? It's food. Literally, whatever you eat becomes your cells. Whatever you eat is what interacts with our body, right? You're taking something from the environment and you're putting it inside your body. So that's going to have an effect besides just whether or not it's tasty, right? That's going to have, there's a cascade of events and chemical signals that are happening all over our bodies just from what we put into our bodies. And yet what's amazing is if you get rid of the inflammatory foods and you add the healing foods, literally, your body can go back to a healthy place again and do what it wanted to do the whole time, which was to get rid of the illness. So just like if you were banging your knee in the same spot every day, your body wants to heal, but it can't because you won't stop. You won't leave it alone. So if you're doing that breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack, it's the same thing. But if you stop doing that, then your body can heal itself. And smoking is a really great example of that. You know, when someone's a smoker, within 20 minutes of quitting smoking, their heart rate and blood pressure drop. And within 12 hours, carbon monoxide levels are normal. And, you know, within 2 weeks to 3 months, their circulation improves, lung function increases. And by a year, their excess heart disease risk is in half. 5 years later, their cancer risk goes to that of a non-smoker, and stroke risk goes down to a non-smoker. So literally, you can reverse it to the point that you can almost have the lungs and health of a non-smoker by 10 to 15 years after you quit. That's amazing. That means that every single night while you're sleeping, your body's trying to heal, and then you wake up and you ruin it with your first cigarette. It's the same thing with food. Overnight, your body is trying to heal that inflammation, and then you eat breakfast, and boom, that cascade continues to be triggered. So it's really, really important to understand. So let's get into it. So the first food that causes inflammation is animal products. I want you to write this one. Step 1, avoid animal products. And when I'm talking about animal products, I'm talking about all this stuff here. If it came from an animal, whether it's meat or fish or chicken or turkey, or it came out of an animal, like an egg or milk or any dairy products, all of those are animal products, and they all trigger disease. People hate this slide, and I understand a lot of tasty food comes from animals, but it's also killing us. And I'm going to give you some details why. This first one here, dairy products. I literally, when I teach my Amazing Health Mastery course, I spend about 2 hours just on dairy because it is so lethal. I can't do that tonight because you guys would be angry at me. You'd be on the webinar for hours. Okay, what's going on here? Although I am thinking about doing an online version of Amazing Health Mastery. That's a 12-hour course to learn everything about foods that make you sick and foods that heal you. We're doing the condensed version of this so you can get the point, all right? So dairy products, I'm talking milk, cheese, cottage cheese, eggs, ice cream, even yogurt. And, you know, I always joke that if people say they're lactose intolerant, they're lucky because they get diarrhea. And the diarrhea is a really good warning. Don't eat this stuff. But a lot of people don't realize what the dairy products are doing to them. Now realize a lot of folks will tell me, oh, I can give up milk, but I still like cheese. Well, cheese, it takes 7 to 8 pounds of milk to make 1 pound of cheese. So you're getting concentrated bad stuff when you're eating cheese, but it's very addictive. And the reason that it's addictive is there's something called casomorphine in cheese that actually triggers the morphine areas of your brain. So it literally makes your brain light up like you're a drug addict. So it's addictive. But how do you stop wanting a substance you're addicted to? You stop using it altogether and you let yourself heal and the cravings get better. I was a cheesetarian. I was extremely addicted to cheese for most of my life. And I can tell you now it actually grosses me out. So there is life after cheese, okay? But the reason that cheese is bad, and again, 2 hours I can spend on this. Let me give you a really quick rundown. One of the first issues is the actual sugar. A lot of people have an inflammatory response to the lactose or the sugar in it, right? But the other problem is the protein. So there's 2 major proteins in milk, whey and casein. Casein has been proven to be a cancer promoter on the DNA level. It literally tells your DNA to make cancer. So if you've been exposed to carcinogens, and you eat dairy products, now you've got the perfect storm to create cancer. A Harvard study showed that dairy products triples your risk of ovarian cancer. Dr. T. Colin Campbell did studies that show that that actual casein milk protein can turn cancer on and off. And so literally can start, you add the milk or the casein, and the cancer starts growing. You take it away, it stops growing, literally turns it on and off. There's also been a primary nutrition link from breast and prostate cancer. And they think it's IGF-1 from cow milk. Men who have the highest levels of IGF-1 have more than 4 times the risk of prostate cancer than with people at the lowest levels. And that's coming from dairy products. Also understand that dairy products come from a cow that just had a baby. And so there's enormous amounts of estrogen in there. And so that is also going to lead to a higher risk of breast cancer and prostate cancer. Sometimes people worry that soy has phytoestrogen in it and that could cause cancer. Phytoestrogen actually blocks estrogen, and it protects you against cancer. If you're worried about estrogen, you've got to get away from dairy products. It's also been linked to type 1 diabetes. There's been studies that show that babies will actually develop antibodies against the milk proteins, they'll actually develop it against the beta lactoglobulin, which is in whey protein. And that those proteins actually confuse the immune system and can actually lead to type 1 diabetes in kids that are genetically prone to it. So again, you give a kid a glass of milk when they're 1 year old, and if that kid is more likely to have diabetes, that could trigger that. Same thing with bottle feeding, using infant formulas in kids that have a genetic predisposition to type 1 diabetes. The milk might be the actual trigger that causes the disease. And when I read that research, I literally cried. I sat on my couch and wept because I remember telling parents to give their kids milk at 1. And there's zero evidence in the literature to support any health benefit. And there's a whole lot of evidence showing that this is actually poisoning our children. I've actually gotten to the point where I tell people, if you're going to give your kid milk, hand them a cigarette too. And that usually gets their attention. I actually don't want you to give them cigarettes. I want you to understand how lethal this stuff is. If you can't produce breast milk, I highly recommend you go to Human Milk for Human Babies and get a milk donor. I donated milk to about 4 different families when I had my kids because I made so much milk, and those families didn't need to use formula, or at least didn't need to use as much of it. So it's also kids with autism are very sensitive and usually do really well when you eliminate dairy. It also causes acidity. So our bodies like to have a neutral pH, and dairy has way too much acid. And what happens is when you eat acidic foods, your body actually releases calcium phosphate from your bones in order to neutralize the acid. So for people who are thinking they're drinking milk, they're going to get stronger bones. It's the opposite. Every time you drink milk, you actually weaken your bones. And that's why we have the highest rate of osteoporosis in our country. Even though we have the highest rate of milk consumption, it's actually cause and effect. And what do people do when they have osteoporosis? They have even more dairy products. And have you ever seen anyone reverse their osteoporosis eating yogurt? Never, right? But I have actually seen it reversed in people who were eating a plant-based diet. Goodness, there's so much. I mean, they've done studies of over 15,000 women, by the way, that showed no protection from osteoporosis from high dairy, but they showed them worsening from high dairy. So there's been research to back that up. And if you're wondering, there's a lot of people out there that get bad allergies to foods over time. This is someone named Freddie. He actually goes to my gym. That's where we are at the gym. He sat down with me one day and was telling me that he was having really bad problems. His blood pressure was up, and said, you have no idea who you're talking to right now. And so I would talk to him about his diet. And he's a bodybuilder. He's a police officer and a bodybuilder. And he was eating a diet of just meat and milk. He would drink glasses of milk every day. And what happened is, since he's been in his 20s, he's become allergic to almost every fruit and vegetable on the planet. There was only a handful of things that he could still eat that were from plants. And so I changed his diet over. We eliminated the milk. We eliminated the meat. He had meat maybe once a week instead, no milk at all. And within a couple months, he was able to eat fruit again. And he was so allergic, he actually needed an EpiPen if he had accidentally ate any fruit. And 2 months later, he ran over and asked my husband if he could give me a hug because he was so excited he could eat fruit again. So and this was someone who'd been allergic to foods for 20 years, and now all of his food allergies are gone. That is the power of what this is doing to your immune system. Meanwhile, when he drank milk, he felt fine. He thought. He didn't see the relationship between the dairy products and his allergies. I've also reversed asthma in multiple patients, usually within a couple weeks, by eliminating dairy. So The thing about dairy is it's sneaky. Most people don't even realize what it's doing to their body or how sick it's making them because they don't directly see the connection between what they ate and their symptoms. So I want you to understand that, that you have the power to eliminate this and to take this out of your life. So I want you to think about that. And if this one is affecting you, I want you to circle it, because if you're eating a lot of dairy products and you're struggling with disease right now, this might be the problem right here. Okay. So that's one thing. And I could talk to you about him and other stuff for a while, but we got to run through here. Other thing to just know about, as I said, that, this is coming from cows that have just given birth. So there's a whole lot of estrogen. They're also using a lot of growth hormones in the milk to try to get them produce more milk. Most of the cows have mastitis and infections because you can see the conditions here are pretty dirty. And they're making 4 times more milk than they did in 1950. So they're having tons and tons of infections. And so they're using these vacuum pumps to overcome. Normally an infected teat will close itself off, but these vacuum pumps are so strong that it forces it open. So the infected milk gets put into our milk supply as well. And they've shown that there's over 1 million white blood cells, which is pus, in every teaspoon of milk. So the dairy industry says it's okay because they cook it, but I don't want cooked pus either personally. So it's just something to be aware of. There is really nothing good about this. And if you're having antibiotic-free milk, well, great, you're not having antibiotics, so you're just having more of the diseases that are in there. There's just really no positive, unfortunately, when it comes to milk. And what I can tell you is that right now I'm way more addicted to how healthy feels than I ever was addicted to cheese, and you can do it too. Now, the rest of this, of course, is the other animal products, all different kinds of meat, and I'm including fish and eggs and all of this. They all are contributing to your illness, okay? I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. And again, I could spend a lot of time in each one of these. I have a lot of details in my book about it, but I want you to just understand the importance of each step so you can think about how this is affecting your life. Mayo Clinic conducted a review of 6 large-scale studies involving more than 1.5 million people in the US, China, and the European Union. And overall, eating processed meat was associated with a higher risk of all-cause mortality. It is considered a class A carcinogen in the same category as cigarettes, okay? So realize that. So processed meats, that's going to be your bacon, bologna, all of those cured meats, and hot dogs. And meanwhile, who eats the most hot dogs and bacon? They're given to kids, bologna. Again, another carcinogen that's being served up to our children. And yet kids right now have the highest rates of cancer they've ever had. I wonder why. Okay, so the rest of the meats are considered a class B carcinogen, which means likely carcinogen, but it doesn't have as much weight of evidence as the class A does. But I have seen a lot of evidence, I can tell you, that you can consider it a carcinogen. Another review of more than 500,000 participants found that very low meat intake had 25 to nearly 50% decrease in all causes of mortality. Realize people who ate little to no meat had a 50% decrease in all causes of mortality. We're not just looking at cancer, we're looking at heart disease, we're looking at diabetes, all causes of mortality. That is super significant. This is not just a small power study. This is a huge power study. Now, what are the reasons for this? There's a lot of reasons. It's very acidic as well. So it's also going to affect your bones poorly. That also triggers inflammation, disease. They found that when you have high fruits and vegetables, that's actually alkaline and that neutralizes acidity. When you've got a lot of animal protein, you actually increase your acidity. And so sometimes that's contrary to what people believe. They think, oh, fruit seems like it has more acid, but it's actually what happens within your body. Meat, cheese, and eggs also decreases your ability to regulate insulin and is the highest risk factor for type 2 diabetes. It is very clear. There's been good research that shows this, that is actually protein and fat from animal products that actually is triggering insulin resistance. The fat from animal products will actually coat your cells so that the insulin receptors are blocked. So even though your body is saying, hey, let's raise the insulin up and try to absorb some of this food here and some of this sugar, you can't because of the animal fats. When you eliminate animal fats and you eliminate animal proteins, those symptoms go away. I had somebody go who was in my rapid healing group. She dropped 100 points off her blood sugar and dropped 7 pounds in 1 week. And that was eating tons of fruit. okay? Because she got rid of animal products. She said going to My Amazing Health Mastery was the first day of her life that she didn't eat meat, and she was amazed she was still alive. So you can live and you can thrive, okay? They did a French study with over 14,000 participants that showed that decreasing animal products cuts your diabetes risk in half. And that makes sense with that decreasing your all causes of mortality in half, right? It also has a significant effect on your gut flora. A lot of people are tossing around the whole idea of leaky gut nowadays. Well, where does leaky gut come from? It comes from what you put in the gut, right? What are you putting in your gut? If you're putting meat and animal products in your gut, it actually selects for the bacteria that prefer meat. And those are different than the bacteria that prefer the vegetables and healthy food. And so you literally change over what bacteria you have. It also damages the lining of your gut. There was an article in Scientific American where they actually looked at the gut response to saturated fat from dairy or animal products. And what they found was immediately healthy bacteria were decimated when exposed to those foods. And in some patients, or in some, I'm sorry, it was an animal study, but in some of the animals, they literally had inflammation and hemorrhaging of their gut. So if you think about that, if every meal you eat has some cheese on it or has a little bit of meat with it, then every single meal you're causing inflammation of your gut, and possibly to the level of even hemorrhage or leaky because it is actually being damaged, all right? So this is something that you need time to recover from. And they've shown it can take 2 years for your gut to normalize after an exposure to antibiotics. Well, you're eating antibiotics in every meal if you're eating animal products, well, at least most animal products, right? So and that's actually what's created antibiotic resistance in people, not getting too many antibiotics for their cold, but it's actually the animal products because those animals are so sick, they're constantly being exposed to them. So it's really, really important if you're trying to improve your health that you have a healthy gut, because your gut is what's going to absorb the good food. So sometimes people will tell me, oh, I tried your smoothies, but I actually felt worse. My stomach hurt. I said, it's not because the smoothie's bad for you. It's because your gut is so sick, it can't even absorb healthy food. And so I highly recommend high-grade probiotics if that is the case for you. Another thing to really understand, and I'm going to go over this more in detail, is that arachidonic acid is the precursor to our inflammatory immune cells. So when I talked about chronic inflammation, we are driving the inflammation up by driving up arachidonic acid. Where does arachidonic acid come from? It comes from meat and eggs. And so every time you eat a serving of meat or eggs, you create more inflammatory immune cells, which then creates more inflammation. And that is the pattern most people are living with. Right? And realize when you've got those inflammatory immune cells, they don't just cause pain, they cause cancer growth, joint destruction, atherosclerosis, and all the other diseases that are killing most people today. So that's really, really important. I'll show you really quick how it works because I think sometimes a visual can really help here. So if you look at chicken, eggs, beef, fish, duck, fowl, lamb, eggs, all right, all this stuff, basically any animal product, you're getting arachidonic acid. And so I don't want you to memorize what you're looking at here. I'm going to show you what it means. 5-LOX, COX-1 and COX-2 are enzymes. They're enzymes that create immune cells, okay? They're enzymes that create the inflammatory immune cells, which are leukotriene B4, thromboxane A2, and prostaglandin E2, okay? That's all you need to know. Now, when you're eating arachidonic acid-rich foods, which are animal products, you increase 5-LOX, you increase COX-1, and you increase COX-2. What does that mean? Let's put this in regular terms. If you have increased 5-LOX, you have increased cancer growth, increased cancer invasion, increased cancer metastasis. If you increase all of that, you're going to get more of leukotriene B4. What happens when you have more leukotriene B4? Chronic inflammation, destruction of healthy tissue, arthritis, edema, asthma, atherosclerosis, heart attacks, pain, and inflammatory bowel disease. All right. If you have any of those diseases and you're eating those foods, I hope this is an aha for you. If you have more COX-1, you're going to have more heart attacks and strokes. This is where you normally take an aspirin to block this enzyme. What if you just stop activating the enzyme by not eating this stuff? Then you don't need to take a medicine that could cause ulcers in your stomach. Now, what happens when you have more COX-2? You're going to get more cancer growth, more cancer blood supply, and you're going to have more PGE2, which causes more cancer, chronic inflammation, pain, irritable bowel, and inflammatory bowel disease. There's more diseases. I can't fit them all on the table. All right. But I want you to see the direct link with what's actually happening for you here. Okay. Really, really important. I hope that helps. Now, if you're wondering why your doctor hasn't told you this, that's because as a physician, this is actually what I learned. And I wanted to show you is that here's your arachidonic acid pathway, and here's the medicines you can use to block each of these things. And you can see, oh, 5-loxygluten will do that. Boom, your asthma is going to feel better. And aspirin, ibuprofen here, and Vioxx or Celebrex here. But we never learned where the arachidonic acid came from. And it's fascinating that no one in my class actually asked that question. I never remember that. Once I learned where it came from, and I teach doctors and nurse practitioners and health coaches, and they're always astonished when they go, holy crap, I never even thought about that. So this really empowers us. But this is why your doctor never says to actually fix your diet. They forgot to teach us that connection. They just taught us these pathways and the meds to use in these pathways. So it's not your doctor's fault. They're not trying to be a pill pusher. It's literally all we learned. And if I had not accidentally healed myself of lupus when I was an intern, I would have been the same kind of doctor who used the best tools I knew how to use, which would have been medications. But that's the reason why. And it's getting early, so I'm just going to jump through here. I'm going to pass this up. This is just basically, it was an old commercial from the 50s where your doctor says that you should smoke Camels, right? So one of the biggest reasons that doctors also don't teach us information is most of them are eating those foods. And there's something psychological about not wanting to tell people to do stuff that you're still doing yourself, right? So it's just something to be aware of. And I wanted to really quickly help you just see the power of this. I'm going to be doing case studies on Thursday of next week, but I had someone who came to see me who literally, he had lupus and it was very severe, but he actually got kidney failure after he went paleo. And paleo is a diet where they get rid of dairy and they get rid of processed foods, but it's you're allowed to have as much meat as you want. And he ate a ton of meat and ended up in kidney failure. And I've actually had 3 more people have the same exact thing happen. Increasing your meat consumption will make you sicker, and it's dangerous. The people who get better doing paleo are the ones that were eating too much dairy and they don't really like that much meat to begin with. But it's a very dangerous thing. And I only teach you what works for everyone. I'm not interested in what just could work for somebody, because if it doesn't work for everyone, then it's not clear enough and there's something wrong with the protocol and they need to fix it. So all I teach you right now is what works for every single person, because I need that to be true. I need it to be that whatever I'm teaching you is going to be what you need to help you get better. And I'll do more case studies back on next Thursday, so you can see that. So step number 2. All right, so step 1 was avoid animal products, and that's dairy and meat. Step 2 is avoid added oils. And I'm not talking about the fat and whole foods. That's really, really important. It is not a health threat to eat a coconut or an avocado. I love avocado. If I put guacamole on the table, I will eat so much broccoli because I'm dipping into that, right? So you can eat that fat in whole plant foods. But I'm talking about the oils, okay? So I already talked about how the fats in animal products hurt you. Well, trans fats, that you can find in a lot of processed foods, they actually damage your blood vessels and they cause the fatty blockages in your blood vessels. There's saturated fats from animals, as I said, will damage your gut flora. And by the way, there was a study that was done recently where there's a chemical TMO that is released by our gut bacteria that tells your body to deposit fat in your arteries. And they actually got people who eat meat and vegans, people who had been vegan for a year or more, to eat steak to see what happens. I don't know how they got the vegans to do it, but they did. And what they found was the people who eat meat regularly released TMO when they ate the meat, and they got the signal to create fatty blockages. But the vegans, their bacteria did not release that hormone, which means you normally don't eat any meat. Your gut bacteria don't produce that, and therefore you won't get blockages in your arteries. And so literally changing over to healthy gut bacteria protects you from heart disease in a very specific way. And that also may explain why, that back in some kind of tribal cultures where they only ate meat when food was scarce, they didn't have heart disease in their blood vessels, because most of the time they were eating plants and they had the right bacteria. So it was really, really fascinating. Vegetable oils are also a direct source of omega-6, which creates arachidonic acid, which, if you remember, is what creates our inflammatory immune cells. Now, I'm going to show you another little bit of science. I promise it won't hurt. And it's going to just be a reminder of what you just saw. So vegetable oils. So I'm talking about all of them: canola oil, soybean oil, all those different kinds of oils. Anything but olive oil. Olive oil is not in this pathway. It doesn't contribute to this pathway. It's an omega-9 mostly. So that one's off the chart. But in general, all the other ones are going to be here. Processed foods are here too, because processed foods, all that stuff you buy, that all has oil in it too for the most part. So those are all sources of something called linoleic acid. And all I want you to look at is this brings you down to arachidonic acid. Now, do you remember where you just saw that? Boom. So if your diet consists of meat, eggs, and vegetable oils and processed foods, like if you like a bag of chips with a burger and you had an Egg McMuffin for breakfast, guess what you got? A whole bunch of arachidonic acid. And what does that do? That creates all of the inflammation and cancer and autoimmune disease and heart attacks and strokes. I hope this makes sense to you now, why these foods cause the illness. I've had a lot of people tell me that they've heard a lot of doctors and healthcare people say now you should eat plant-based, vegan all the way, but they don't understand why. And for me, I'm a why person. If I don't understand it, it's really hard for me to follow it. I want this to be as clear to you as it can be, why these foods are making you sick. They directly create inflammation, and that creates, if you've got too much chronic inflammation, remember what I told you in the beginning, when it's too much, when it becomes chronic, then all you're doing is creating this pathway. You're going to get so much that it's then going to trigger inflammatory diseases, okay? And that's what makes you sick. So if this is what your diet looks like, you now know what's making you sick. I want you to write that down. And the last one I've already alluded to is avoiding processed foods. So these are the foods to avoid. Remember, we're going to be getting to the stuff to eat. So I don't want you to freak out that there's nothing to eat anymore. There's plenty to eat. I love to eat, okay? Step 3 is avoid processed foods. Now, processed foods are basically anything that your grandma wouldn't have identified as food back in the day. My grandmother didn't even have a refrigerator, so she had to walk to the market every day to get fresh food. Like, talk about some real food, right? So those are going to be the things that, white flours, sugars, processed grains, the entire bread aisle. I don't care if it says whole grain. If it doesn't rot and get moldy within a day or two, then that is not an unprocessed food. The only bread I eat is Ezekiel bread that I get out of the frozen aisle made from sprouted grains. If you leave that out, it'll get moldy, because it's real fresh food with no processed stuff in it, okay? So all that stuff. Basically, if it says healthy on it, then it's unhealthy. Because you ever notice that it doesn't say healthy in the vegetable aisle? Like, they don't need to put a sign there, but it says healthy in the cereal aisle. Don't trust that. No. All right? And basically what you want to do is think about like a cereal box versus an apple. What are the ingredients in the cereal, right? It's got like 50. What's the ingredients of an apple? It's just apple, right? Unprocessed foods are foods that you could grow yourself if you had a green thumb, okay? So you don't need to be a chemist to make it. You can actually grow it. Then it's an unprocessed food. If it can go bad, it's an unprocessed food, okay? So really you're looking at, the farm versus the lab, anything that doesn't require refrigeration, so nothing that's homogenized, refined, processed. They didn't even start using ingredient labels to the 50s because food was just food. I can't even imagine that, right? And what they've shown is your body actually doesn't know what to do with these food-like products. And they've shown that you actually increase your immune response markers within minutes after eating processed foods. And I'm talking about CRP and interleukin-6 and all these inflammatory cytokines. They're all raised in your bloodstream within minutes after eating processed food. So you literally look like you've got an infection and all you did was eat something. They also destroy your gut health. They change your gut permeability. They lead to that leaky gut syndrome as well. In addition to that, this is one of the biggest sources of not only oils, which are leading into that inflammatory pathway, but also sugar and high fructose corn syrup, all that stuff, which is contributing to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I see so many people now that have liver disease that do not drink, but they eat a lot of processed foods and sugars, and it literally damages your liver just like alcohol. And in addition to causing diabetes. And, these foods are extremely addictive, just like casein and cheese causes you to get triggered on your opiate pathway. These foods also, they are designed by chemists to create a response in your brain that triggers addiction and pleasure. And that's why you suddenly go, holy crap, how did I eat that whole bag of cookies or that whole bag of chips? You actually get into an unconscious addictive cycle with these. There's little to no nutrients in these things, and yet they are feeding literally disease in your body. So you really want to avoid these and start having fresh foods. So I hope that this gave you a lot of food for thought. Food for thought for right now. I know that's pretty cheesy. But what I want you to write down right now, before we get to the Q&A, is I want you to write down your homework, which is this. I want you to start noticing if you are eating inflammatory foods right now, where they are coming up in your diet. So is it like, oh my God, I'm having processed cereal with cow milk for breakfast. Every morning I'm starting my day with inflammation, right? I want you to look at what are your snacks? What are the things that you're eating that are coming from animal products, processed foods, and oils? And how do you think they might be holding you back from healing? I mean, obviously, if somebody is a smoker that has cancer, we don't usually tell them, hey, you know what? Let's we don't tell them, oh, you have lung cancer. Oh, well, why don't you just start eating kale? No, the first thing we tell them to do is you got to quit smoking, right? So it's the same thing. I'm not saying you need to give all this stuff up at once. That's why I write things in steps. There's the 6 steps to healing. So you can take things one step at a time at your pace. When people join my rapid healing group, that's 6 weeks where you only eat healing foods and I'm watching you. I'm like, but I'm also supporting you and helping you understand how to fix your diet and incorporate those things. But if you're doing this on your own and it's intimidating for you, like if literally I just described your diet with the first 3 steps and you're going, what am I going to eat? Don't worry. For now, just start by noticing. You don't have to make the changes yet because I haven't told you what to eat yet. We're going to do that on Monday, okay? So just breathe and just start to notice. And I will teach you the foods that you need to eat for healing. I promise you won't starve. I love to eat, and you can love to eat too, and you can eat in a way that'll support your health. So I just want you to start noticing where these foods are coming into your diet and realizing that, you know what, that might be my cigarette. That might be the thing that's triggering my disease. So I want to go ahead and get started with the Q&A. And if your question is about what to eat, I'll probably ignore that one, not because I don't love you, but because I'm going to teach that in detail on Monday, okay? So you have Father's Day brunch to get it out of your system before Monday. But if you have any other questions about what I've been talking about or diseases in general, please go ahead. I see there's a whole big list of questions already. So I'm going to get started on those. And I really hope that this was really helpful for you. If you don't remember or you haven't written it down, Monday, same time as now, Monday night at 7 p.m., we're going to do steps 4, 5, and 6, how to eat to heal. And then the following Thursday, we'll be doing case studies so you can look at real people and see what they eat and how they reverse their diseases, okay? So, all right, let me just jump right into the Q&A. I'm going to move over to this. Whoa, okay, there's a lot of questions. So I'm going to go as long as I can. Sometimes the Q&A is as long as the whole talk. So let's just see what we got here. Okay, first one here. All right, let me see here. Okay, Michelle. So Michelle wants to know, I would love some oil-free salad dressings. Are there any that you recommend? I think dressing's a game changer. I 100% agree with you, Michelle. I'm actually in the process right now of coming out with a healing recipe book. I already have my green smoothie recipe book, but there's people who want things like dressings and sauces and different meals. Dressing is a game changer. If you're in our Smoothie Shred group, I've posted in that group my favorite dressing, which is an almond Caesar dressing. It's a Caesar dressing made out of almonds, and the almonds give it the fattiness that tastes really good but doesn't cause the inflammation. Another good place you can look to is literally you can look up, if you Google, and it's literally called this, if you Google the big list of no oil dressings, then you can actually, there's a big list of no oil salad dressings, and there's a lot of really, really good ones. And you can check that out, and that there's a lot of good ones in there as well. And if you want to go to smoothieshred.com, smoothieshred.com is my husband and my free community that for people who want to get healthy. And so you can join that, and it's posted in there as well. All right, let's see. Monique, is hummus from the store okay? I also found organic canned chili beans at the store. Is that okay? Hummus from the store, you've got to look how they make it. So Whole Foods, for example, in the area where Whole Foods has the foods that they prepare, there's hummus there that's just chickpeas, olive oil, tahini, lemon juice, and garlic. That one is a better choice. You don't want a ton of olive oil, but if you're going to choose an oil, that's the one to use because it doesn't cause inflammation. Now, most of the ones in the store, though, that are pre-made, they use really cheap oils in there. Those are inflammatory. Hummus is really easy to make on your own, too, and you can even make an oil-free version. It is very, very simple. Canned beans from the store is probably fine. There is some BPA in cans, so you don't want to use a lot of cans, but using them sometimes is probably okay. All right. Let's see. Karen, what vegetables are sources of protein? All of them. And Leah, what are your thoughts on taking flax oil capsules in addition to putting flax in smoothies? Okay, so some of these things are going into what to eat. I'll answer really quick, seeds, not oils, but I'll talk about that more on Monday. I'm guessing vegan cheese whose primary ingredients are different kinds of oils should not be eaten. So one of the things you have to understand is there's a difference between eating for healing and what I call maintenance eating. So once you're healthy, you don't have to eat as strictly. You can add back some of the poisons and you won't get sick anymore. It's just as long as you keep the healing foods in your diet that I'm going to teach about on Monday. But when you're trying to heal, then yes, I wouldn't eat processed vegan cheese that's made out of coconut oil. That is not going to help you heal, and all sorts of other oils in there. If you are a healthy person that mostly eats a really, really good diet based on my definition of a good diet, then once in a while, yes, I occasionally will go out and have vegan pizza that has fake cheese on it. My health is extraordinary, though. And the majority of what I eat at home is all healing foods. I love them. I feel great. So once in a while, I can go out and eat the stuff that's what I call recreational eating. But if you're trying to heal, then I do not recommend them. They go under processed foods, which are full of oils. Should I take my evening primrose oil that has omega-6? Do not take that. There's a lot of supplements out there that say 3, 6, and 9 on there. First of all, the only 9 you make as you need it. You don't need to add 9 to your diet. Your body makes it on its own. So that's a scam. Don't take 9. 3 and 6. 3 is essential. I'll be talking about it Monday. 6 is in everything else you eat. Most people in our country and in countries around the world have way too much omega-6, which is why we have so much inflammation. They think a healthy ratio of 3 to 6 is probably somewhere between 1 and 1 and 1 to 9. When they tested American populations, this was years ago, it was 1 to 40 of 3 to 6, which is why we have so much inflammation. I actually believe it'll be much worse nowadays than it was back then. So you do not need to add 6. That's going to drive your inflammation up. So yeah, 3 is the only one that we should be focusing on when we're trying to reverse inflammation. Good question. All right, coconut oil. Coconut oil has never been proven to be healing in any way. I love it on my skin topically. It actually repels mosquitoes. It's very good for moisturizing. It's great for your hair, for deep conditioning. Don't eat it. The only thing it's been proven to do in research is raise your cholesterol. I've had 2 people who got high cholesterol eating coconut oil that went back to normal when they stopped it. I wouldn't do it. Avocado oil. Avocado oil is an omega-9 as well. I don't suggest you add it to your diet, but if you're going to use an oil, then omega-9 is better, which would be avocado and olive oil. Now, those fats still get into your bloodstream after you eat them, and that can interfere with cell signaling, which you don't want to do. But if you're going to use an oil, at least that doesn't create inflammation. But I'd rather you eat the avocado or use avocado itself than use the oil. Ursula, if you can't use oils or butter to cook with, what can you use as an alternative? You know, it's pretty amazing what you can do. If you want to start out by still using an oil, get olive oil. And what I do is I put it in a squirt bottle, you know, those little spray bottles that you can buy. So I put it in my spray bottle and I literally just spray a little bit in the bottom of the pan. I don't pour it in there. You can also fry anything in water or broth. You just have to do it at a lower temperature and take a little longer, but it actually cooks it just fine. Oils are just a way to cook things faster, but it creates a horrible impact on your health. And you can Google that. You can actually Google how to cook things. I once actually, what is it called with the onion? I caramelized an onion using only water. It took a really long time, but I wanted to see if I could do it, and I did, and it was delicious. So it is absolutely possible. It's just a little bit of a change in your learning, and the internet is great for that because there's a lot of people who are eating oil-free nowadays. Okay, let's see here. What do I think about Plaquenil? I think that medication has been very helpful for a lot of people. And I want you to understand that I am not anti-medication. I'm a Western medical doctor. I still prescribe medication. I just see medication as a tool, not the end game. There are times when people are so sick that if they don't take a medication, their kidneys will fail, their organs are failing, they're in so much excruciating pain that they can't wait for their bodies to start doing their thing, okay? Certain people, those medicines are saving their life. And I would never say to just stop a medicine that you're on that's helping you, especially if you're not on the healing diet to fix it. Now, I do have some people that, you know, a lot of people come to me who are on those meds and they're still sick anyway. And after about 2 weeks on my diet, a lot of them are lowering their meds or coming off of them, but they're doing it with their doctor. Some do go rogue and do it on their own, but I recommend you do it with your doctor. A lot of these medicines, if you stop them too quickly, you can actually increase your symptoms. And I would hate to see you do that. So please work with your doctor. And as you don't need them anymore, that's when you get rid of them. That's my personal approach to it. Can I take daily? I take daily aspirin. If I stop all meat and go vegan, can I stop taking it? It's a good question, Monique. You know, if you're not eating any meat and you're not eating any dairy products and you're not eating any oils and you're eating 100% plant-based diet, then you will automatically lower your COX-1 levels without needing aspirin. And so again, you want to work with your doctor on that. But it has been shown over and over again, and there's actually a new study that I can't wait to release some more results about the newest study that's happening that just got finished up about this. But they've shown that heart disease, the only way that you can reverse heart disease, the only way it has been reversed is through a 100% plant-based diet. And I'm talking about literally reversing plaques, opening up the arteries, all through diet. Medicines can't do that. And even bypass surgery doesn't do that. They just take veins out of your leg and like make a bypass route, but then those block themselves off too. So you can absolutely reverse disease in your arteries and not need the medications that they prescribe for heart disease, which when I was a resident, as soon as somebody had a heart attack or any kind of sign of heart disease, 5 meds we had to put them on right away for the rest of their lives. Now I know you don't need to do that. You can actually heal their hearts and their arteries with the diet. Pretty awesome. Okay. Supplements to reduce inflammation in addition to a vegan gluten-free diet. Gluten-free, I don't teach gluten-free. They once measured that maybe 40% of people with autoimmune disease have some reactivity with gluten. I think it's probably more of a processed food issue, but if you're not reacting to it, you can eat it. I can eat gluten and I'm fine. But if you react to gluten, definitely stay away from it. I have reversed gluten sensitivity in people by using this diet because, again, it's like an allergy. Think of Freddie with all of his food allergies. It's just like that. But if you're basically saying, is there any supplements you can take in addition to food? The only supplements, I usually just try to use food. You know, food is inexpensive and it works. But the one supplement that really is food-based that has been shown to decrease inflammation and pain in people while you're trying to then change your diet to get your health back would be turmeric or curcumin. And the study that they did on rheumatoid arthritis showed that people who were taking 2,000 milligrams a day, 1,000 milligrams in the morning, 1,000 milligrams at night, they had a significant reduction in their arthritis. When they switched the control and the other one, then their pain went back when they went on the placebo and the other people's pain went down. So they did show it was significant. A lot of people I treat, their pain gets better so quickly with food that I don't use it at all. There's some people who have such severe levels of inflammation that I suggest, hey, you know what, maybe try some of that too, but it's totally unnecessary if you're eating in the right way. Do oats count as gluten? Is that inflammatory? So I kind of just answered that question. There are some, I think regular oats are not, but again, if you're not sensitive to gluten, you don't have to worry about it. Oats, though, are not a healing food. I'll teach you about the healing foods coming up. They are a healthy food, which means it doesn't damage you, but they're not a healing food. Okay. Are there any precautions to take on a smoothie vegan diet? I've read articles about B12 deficiency, weakness, fatigue. My rheumatologist had nothing to say. And understand your rheumatologist then doesn't know. And it's really interesting now. When I first started teaching this stuff, so again, this is 13 years. This year in October will be 13 years that I'm disease-free. And I spent 12 years of my life being extremely ill. And at this point in my career, there are a lot of doctors that actually follow me and actually carry my book in their office. I have one doctor who's like makes the residents learn about this, right? So there's doctors that follow me and they know my work and they know about this and they teach it. And then the rest of them have never heard of it, have never read about it, and think it's all bullcrap. It just seems to be one or the other. There doesn't seem to be one that's like, I think I did hear about it. You know, because if they heard about it, you'd think they'd pursue it and read about it. So they either are aware of it and they're teaching it and they're excited about it, or they've never heard of it. And I always say, if your doctor has no idea about any of this, stay with them and heal and teach them, because you will save so many of their patients when they get to witness your healing and learn, and that'll change who they are as a doctor forever. It's pretty awesome. So when it comes to the vegan thing, the healthiest diet on the planet is a whole foods vegan diet, not a junk food vegan diet. You know, French fries are vegan, right? So, I mean, when you're eating, but like our smoothies and stuff like that. Now, B12 is interesting. Most people with B12 deficiency actually are not vegan. B12 deficiency is very common, and it's not usually in vegans, but vegans are more likely to have it, but they don't always get it. So why do people get B12 deficiency? B12 is actually synthesized by bacteria that grow in feces, poop, all right? And so it's usually found in the soil, because animals will stop and eat a piece of fruit and then they poop, and that fertilizes the plant, right? And so then you get some of that B12 that goes through the plant. Pretty cool, right? Now, it's mostly on the exterior because that's where the poop and soil is stuck to it. When you eat animal products, they have found, they've actually studied this, every single piece of meat on the planet has some fecal contamination on it. When they cut those animals apart into little pieces, the bowels explode, fecal matter gets on it. And they've tested chicken, and FDA has tested every single piece of meat. They found that people's kitchen sinks has more feces in it than the toilet when they tested them, because that's where people wash their meat. Yeah, pretty gross, right? So if you are eating fecal matter in your meat, you're getting more B12. In fact, our own poop has tons of B12 in it. Now, I don't recommend that you recycle from yourself. I'm just saying B12 is in poop. So people who eat meat do get more poop in their diet. They get more B12. People who eat plant-based, we tend to nowadays, it used to be you go out and you eat a plant and yeah, you just wipe it off and you eat it, right? Nowadays, we've got stuff to wash our vegetables and get it so clean that there's no dirt on it at all. We literally washed all the B12 off. So some vegans have a poop deficient diet, and so therefore they have lower B12 levels. Now, it's not necessarily an issue. I personally don't take any B12 supplements, and my family doesn't take B12 supplements because our levels are really high. And why are our levels high? We don't eat poop, I swear. So what we do is we eat a lot of fortified nutritional yeast. You can write that down, fortified nutritional yeast, not brewer's yeast, fortified nutritional yeast. You can buy it on Amazon. And it is a product that is synthesized. It's a yeast that produces B12. So it's not poop, it's a yeast that does it. And it's inactive, so it doesn't cause candida or anything like that. I get asked that a lot. It is inactive. It's an inactive yeast. It's not growing, but it has tons of B12 in it, in addition to protein and other things. It's got B vitamins in it. The fortified kind does. And it has, it tastes like, kind of like Parmesan. And so almost every vegan recipe that's cheesy has nutritional yeast in it. And my family, we love nutritional yeast. I put it on everything. I sprinkle it on my salad. It's in my almond Caesar dressing. It's, my sons love tofu with Bragg's aminos, which is like a healthy soy sauce, nutritional yeast on top. So we eat so much of that stuff, our B12 levels are really high. So we've never needed a supplement. Now, there's some argument in the plant-based community about how much B12 you need. Should everyone take it? Should it not? My personal, where I've come to in this, is that you get tested. If your B12 levels are high, keep doing what you're doing. It takes a long time for those levels to drop. They don't just boom, like they don't just drop down. That takes a long time to become deficient. So test your levels, eat fortified nutritional yeast. You should be fine. If your levels are low, you should take a supplement. And I recommend a sublingual, which means under the tongue supplement, so it goes right into your bloodstream. And I know some folks, especially some other doctors, they just say, just to be safe, take an under the tongue B12 supplement like once or twice a week, and you could prevent it. I'm not convinced, just because I don't think we should be taking any pills that we don't necessarily need, but I don't want anyone to get B12 deficient. So that's why I say the safest route is to just get tested. And if you've got a problem, then take it. But there's no 100% right answer here, because they haven't really tested it to figure that out. All right, let's see. Mona, replace meat with how much plant-based protein per serving needed for a teenager? You don't need to worry about protein. So protein is in everything. If you look at it, all the animals that people are eating for protein, where did they get their protein from? Cows got it from grazing and grass and corn, and right? And you look at, all the most muscular animals on the planet are herbivores, right? What do silverback apes do? They're eating leaves all day. Leaves. Oh my God, leaves would be good in a green smoothie, right? So literally we can cut out the middleman or the middle animal and get our protein from the actual source. There's plenty of protein in all the different fruits and vegetables out there, especially vegetables, especially greens. And if you're eating enough food to be full, you have enough food to be able to synthesize whatever proteins you need. There was an old myth about complementary proteins. It is a myth. Your body can make any protein it needs from the amino acids. Just eat a variety of different plant foods and you'll make whatever you need. I was just shot in a fitness cover shoot last week, and I don't take any protein supplements, but I drink a lot of green smoothies. So you don't need to worry about that at all. And I know that's a tough one for most people to swallow, but it's really super true. My husband is a 200-pound bodybuilder, and he doesn't take supplements. Every once in a while, he might do a vegan protein shake just because he's lazy to make food. But most of the time, it's tofu and green smoothies and fruits and vegetables, and he's able to maintain all that muscle mass. Okay. So Monique, what do you give children to replace milk calcium? So if you were listening, Monique, you know, maybe you wrote that before I talked about it. You know, we do not absorb the calcium in the milk because the milk is so acidic. We break down our bones to neutralize the acidity. So therefore, the more milk you give your kid, the weaker their bones will be. And there's been studies that showed that as well. Kids that have more milk have more bone breaks and weaker bones, okay? Don't replace milk, all right? If you want to replace milk, don't do it for calcium. Do it because you like the flavor. So if you've decided, I'm going to do step 1. I'm not ready to do step 3 of getting rid of processed foods, but I'm ready to get rid of meat and dairy, then get almond milk and have your cereal with almond milk. Cereal's still processed, but at least a processed food with almond milk is a much better choice than a processed food with dairy, which is actually much, much more inflammatory, way, way light years more, okay? So replace it only because you want the flavor. There's almond milk, there's coconut milk, there's soy milk. All that stuff is in the supermarket, in the regulars. It's in Walmart. You can get those things. Do it just for flavor. The best source of calcium actually comes from greens like broccoli and spinach and kale, especially kale, right? So we get our calcium just from the plants that we're eating. Let's see. Does it take long for people to heal? This is Sybil. Does it take long for people to heal from lupus if they already ate well before the healing diet? It doesn't, you know, it depends what you mean by ate well, because I have a whole lot of people that I see who tell me, I eat such a healthy diet, I don't know why I'm sick. And then I sit down with them and it wasn't a healthy diet. They were eating yogurt for breakfast and, you know, and lean cuisine and, you know, stuff like that, where it's like just processed food and dairy products. And they're eating healthy according to TV commercials, but they're destroying their bodies from the inside out. But if you mean people who eat like a plant-based diet, so I have a lot of people come to me who eat a whole foods plant-based diet, but they're not eating the healing foods. They're eating like beans and rice and stuff like that, and they still have autoimmune disease. Those folks do respond very well because they're not eating any inflammatory foods. So when we add the healing foods, those people do tend to respond very quickly. And I'm going to show you some of those people when I do the case studies. Rhonda, seltzer water, okay. I like it. It's tasty, but I don't usually drink it as a daily drinker. If I'm at a restaurant or something and I feel like bubbles, I might do it occasionally. I don't know if it equates with actual water. I've never studied seltzer, bubbly water versus regular water for health. I do know some dentists who say that anything with carbonation is actually really bad for your tooth enamel. So that's something to consider. But I don't know that it's, I don't have any reason to believe that it's inflammatory. Okay. All right, Andrea, depends where you're from. Hello, Dr. Gono, I would like to know, how should I take care while in pregnancy and I don't have lupus flare-up? Thank you. Oh, you know, as I mentioned when I was talking about my own story, people who have autoimmune disease, especially lupus, it's very dangerous to get pregnant. A lot of women with lupus die during pregnancy or get severe flares where they end up in the hospital or their baby doesn't make it or they have a stroke. It is just horrific. And I just had a woman come to me. She said she's going to make a video, so hopefully I'll get to show it during my case studies. She had 1 month left of her pregnancy. She has lupus, and she had 2 pregnancies. The first one, she had a child, and that's when she got lupus. Some people, that's when they develop it. The second one was a miscarriage. Both pregnancies led her to be so sick. She was hospitalized, severely, severely ill. So she calls me, it's 1 month before birth, and she doesn't want to have a flare, and she wants to be okay. So I actually put her, so I've mentioned my 6-week rapid healing group. That is a group setting and we interact all together, but the next group wasn't starting again in time for her. So we did it one-on-one for 4 weeks. It costs more to work with me one-on-one because it's texting me all day long, but we didn't have time to wait. So she did 4 weeks with me one-on-one, and we were texting back and forth all day, every day. And within a week, she had more energy than she had before she was pregnant. She actually was on disability that she thought the pregnancy was causing all of her pain in her back. But once we got her diet right, all that pain went away. She started exercising, and she had her baby. Baby's 1 month old right now. She had her baby, and it was a C-section. And oh no, the baby came early. That's right, the baby came early. I'm sorry. And she did well with her delivery, and no symptoms at all. It's now a month later, and she's still eating this way, and she's had zero flare up. And just, I mean, oh, she sends me pictures of this baby, and I'm just so happy. So literally with 1 month left of pregnancy to go, she switched over to only doing the 6 steps and doing them religiously with me, like over her. I hover. I'm a mother, so I'm just, what did you eat? What are you doing? And it is possible, even during pregnancy, to start the healing process during pregnancy and have an amazing outcome. And that was just such a beautiful experience for me, because I have a lot of women contact me after they gave birth and they're so sick, they can't even hold their baby. And it's such a nightmare that they're so sick that they can't even enjoy these precious moments. And so literally within 4 weeks, we're able to reverse it and get her healthy enough that she had an amazing, healthy birth, and she's still doing great. So there is hope, and you can absolutely have a healthy pregnancy and enjoy your baby and enjoy motherhood. Okay, so you're going to follow these steps, okay? And you might want to join the next group. The next group starts July 1st for people who are interested in the group. I guess I should put it up there for people who are interested. I have, so the Rapid Healing Group, I'm just going to write it in here. I'm going to just write it down for you guys. Just for someone, if it's something you're looking into, the next group actually starts July 1st. And so if that is something that you want to do, you want to register, just because I'm cut it off at 25 people. And there's already some, I think I have 4 people who have already registered. And there is a early bird special. So it is going to go up $500 by June 26th. So just if that's something that you're interested in, I'm going to put the website there if you want to look at it. I'm teaching you everything you need to do it on your own. Please know this. I'm teaching you everything. The only reason to go there is because you want me to hold your hand and you want me to watch over you. Okay, so I'll put that there because usually people want to know that. So that's there if you want to look at it. Okay, let me look at the next question here. Do you have to buy organic or just conventional? I'll be talking about that on Monday, but the short answer is buy whatever vegetables and fruits you can afford. Organic is great. If you can't afford it, still buy your vegetables. All right. I have lupus, APS, Sjogren's. Do I have to be concerned about having too much kale? Nope. All right. Can I use stevia or honey as a sweetener? You can. I try not to. I mean, stevia, if someone told me she had a stevia plant, I was like, okay. If it's processed, I haven't studied it. So I don't know. I've seen people who are in my healing programs who use a little bit of it and they seem to do fine. I'd rather someone use something like maple syrup, fresh from a plant. That's my preference, would be to do it that way. Or let's say you're trying to make like a healing chocolate milk. Like I have a chocolate milk recipe in my green smoothie book, and it's got greens in it, but also has cacao. But then for sweetener, you can either add super ripe bananas or dates or things like that. You can sweeten things more naturally that way. I prefer that. Okay. All right, Tara. I've had chronically painless inflamed parotid glands, was diagnosed with Sjogren's. I've turned to being vegan and eating anti-inflammatory diet for the past 2 months. Any tips to reduce the inflammation in the glands so I don't need to take medication? Just keep coming to these classes, put everything into action. And if you're having any issues, you can always let me know. Or if you want me to supervise you, you can always do the group or something. But if you're following the program exactly, then you should be getting the results. And those lymph nodes should be getting smaller and the glands should be getting smaller. Usually if someone doesn't get the results we're looking for, they adjusted the program. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I just didn't do step 6 because I just thought I didn't need it. Like, no, every single one of these steps is vital. All right. You can take them one at a time, but you need to do them all to have the miracles happen. And I'll show you in the case studies exactly how that works, where someone just does part of it and they get healthier versus when they do all of it and miraculously can reverse Sjogren's, lupus, and scleroderma. Right. So, and Sjogren's is really, really responsive. I've treated a lot of people with Sjogren's. I find it responds even faster than lupus does. It's just, I mean, their eyes suddenly have fluids again, and actually the pregnant woman I just talked about, she had lupus and Sjogren's, and she was telling me how she stopped waking up in the middle of the night to need water because her mouth was still lubricated. And so it responds very quickly. You just follow along, okay? Ursula, I'm a lupus patient in complete remission for over a year with all negative antibodies. How do you prepare for pregnancy to ensure you don't have a flare-up? What main nutritional foods and supplements do you keep in place during pregnancy? You're in the right place. I'm going to tell. So you're going to avoid the foods that you just learned about today, and you're going to eat the foods I'm going to teach you about on Monday, and you're going to have a healthy, beautiful pregnancy, just like the one I just told you about. And there is life after lupus and autoimmune disease. I live it, and that's why I'm sitting here right now teaching this to you guys, is because I want you to live it too. Let me see. Oh, goodness, there's more questions. Let me see here. Okay. Is dark chocolate okay? Dark chocolate doesn't have dairy, so that's a benefit, but usually it has sugar. So it really depends what you're doing. Are you in maintenance mode and you're not really trying to heal a disease? Having a little bit of sugar here and there, it's a little bit inflammatory, but you can handle it, right? It's like getting a paper cut. It hurts, but your body can heal it. Versus if you're trying to heal, I wouldn't do that. I would do cacao and maybe use that in a recipe. Like I have recipes, where I'll take dates and some cacao and maybe some coconut and, make into little balls and make these little donut holes or something like that. So there's recipes like that where you can satisfy a chocolate craving without getting the sugar in there. So it really depends what you're looking to do. If you're looking to heal, then you don't want to eat candy. Okay, let's see. Do you think that the gene stops expressing when the inflammation is reversed? We haven't actually looked at the genetic expression, but that is a way of understanding the process. So there are genes that are telling your body to synthesize more of a certain antibody, right? Because that's how we create those proteins. Those antibodies are proteins. So literally, when we shut down the overactive inflammation pathway, we're shutting down expression of those antibodies. And so absolutely. And it's pretty freaking amazing. What's really interesting is that, we're constantly making new cells and we're making them out of what we eat, right? You are what you eat. It's actually true. And what we found is that within 5 years, you've replaced 50% of your cells. Within 2.5 years, 25% of your cells are all brand new, right? So you're literally building a new body, one cell at a time, all made out of the foods you're eating. And so that means by 10 years, you have an entirely 100% new body. So that means that even though I was so severely sick for so much of my life, almost half of my life, severely ill, at the time that I healed, even though that happened, now that it's been over 12 years since I healed myself, this body right now, if you think about it, was never actually sick, right? Because I've had enough time to create all new cells. And so these cells work so much better than the old cells I had. And so you literally can do that for yourself. You can literally build a whole new body that's expressing the genes the way it should be in a healthy fashion and actually does the job it's supposed to do. And it's a beautiful thing. And for me, that's just such a beautiful message of hope because you literally can rebuild yourself. So cool. I love science. All right, let's see here. That was Rich. Does it take longer for someone to heal from lupus if they had it a long time, like 15 plus years? Not necessarily. What's really fascinating to me is there's some people I've treated who have a newer case that seems to take longer than someone who's had a case of it for 15, 20 years. And then sometimes someone's brand new and they can reverse it within a month, right? So I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. And, how progressive your body has taken it, how fast your body responds, how many layers of inflammation. I often talk about how I see the layers of disease and inflammation like layers of an onion. So we're constantly peeling away and getting rid of layers of it as we eat well. And so how many years you had it doesn't necessarily mean you have more layers. Some people might only have been feeling symptomatic for a year, but they've been building layers for many, many years before that. So it's hard to say, but you can, even people I've seen who've had it for 20 years or more can feel symptom-free within a matter of weeks or have a dramatic reduction in symptom in a matter of weeks to months. So it doesn't really matter how long you've had it, you can still get yourself healthy. Mona, what if my doctor doesn't listen? What's my option? You always have a choice. Our role as doctors, I've been a patient and a doctor. So for me, I've been told I'm a very unusual doctor. But that's why I know what it's like to be sitting on the other side and to be totally helpless and just hope that person can heal you, right? That's why I explain everything so much. That's why when I see someone for a Skype consultation, it's at least an hour, usually more than that, because I want to get to know you and I want to know exactly what's going on with you. And I want to make sure you understand everything I'm teaching you. That's what matters to me. But I understand that that's not necessarily the experience with most doctors. So the first thing I recommend is, one, you talk to them because they are humans. And if you say, listen, I don't feel listened to, I want your help. I'm changing my diet to a scientific low inflammation diet that has been shown to reverse lupus in other people. I want you to monitor me. And when my symptoms get better, I want you to help me taper my meds so I only take the meds that I need to take. Talk to your doctor. If they absolutely are uninterested in talking to you, then you should get another doctor. I do believe that you need to find someone that you feel listened to, right? Whether it's your mechanic or your doctor or your therapist, you got to feel listened to. But that means you also need to communicate. You can't just assume they're going to understand what you're trying to do, especially if they're in that camp of doctors that have never heard of this, okay? So just talk to them, and if you don't feel comfortable, then you find another doctor. All right. How do you distinguish between seronegative and disease-free? To me, disease-free is seronegative. So seronegative meaning you test negative for disease. So there are some people I treat that are like me. You can't find any trace of disease in their blood tests. It's not there. And I've seen that happen in a month before. I've seen that happen in 6 months. I've seen that happen in a year. Antibodies have their own lifespan, and so they don't just die all at once, right? So sometimes those things take time. Usually we see certain markers dropping really fast, like CRP or SED rate. Those things measure inflammation. Usually those, they plummet really quickly. But some of the other markers can take time. My markers obviously changed sometime within a 3.5 month window, but I didn't test it along the way, so I don't know when exactly they changed. So when I say I'm disease-free, I mean that I have 0 symptoms of disease, and if you take a blood test, you will not find anything except a super healthy person, right? So that's what I mean by disease-free. Now, you can be symptom-free and still have some positive markers. And like I said, some people do that. I have one person who, she had Sjogren's and lupus, completely symptom-free. She couldn't even go out in the sun without passing out. She would have these horrible neuropathies, could barely use her hands. They would go numb when she tried to drive. She was in so much pain all the time, and she was exhausted to the point that she could barely move, constantly napping all the time. And now she goes running. She goes to the gym. She's got no neuropathy. She's got no pain at all. You would never know this woman was ever sick. But one lab test is still testing positive. It's much lower than it was, but it's still positive. All the other ones are normal. Just one test. And she was a little upset about it. And I said, listen, we only take blood tests because you're feeling sick. So no one would test that marker if you didn't have symptoms of lupus. They only test it because you had it. So if you have 0 symptoms, then no one would ever know that marker was elevated. It could have been elevated before and you never knew it because they never tested it because you weren't sick before. So if you've got 0 symptoms and your blood tests look pretty darn good and there might be one thing off, I don't consider that really having a disease. You just have one marker. Now, when you have all the markers and you're symptomatic, that's a disease. So, most important is how you feel. Your body responds in how it feels first. The blood tests seem to take their own time, and I can't predict that for people. It's kind of weird. I've talked to other biologists about that and immunologists, and the best answer I got was, antibodies have their own their lifespan, and they might vary a little bit, and yada yada yada. But when I say disease-free, I mean there's no sign, symptom, or test that could ever identify that disease. But I think the goal should be feeling as great as you can feel. I have some people who just did the program and they still have a lot of positive markers, but they've got 0 symptoms, or their pain went from an 8 to a 1. It's working. Keep doing it. And eventually the blood markers will catch up. I focus on the symptoms, and then we test the blood markers as they go. And like I said, some people, their markers clear right away and others take time. But if they feel great, that's the whole point, right? that you wake up and you've got energy and you feel amazing and you could go do everything you want to do that day. That's what matters. And that's what a real measurement of health is in my book. Okay. Okay, Karen, I have Sjogren's and I had an AFib episode 3 months ago. My cardiologist put me on beta blockers and blood thinners. They said it's for life. Could a vegan diet help me get healed to the point that I don't need those medications with the doctor's help? It's possible. So I haven't specifically treated AFib. I will never tell you that I've fixed a disease I haven't. This is 100%. I'll just tell you what I've done and what I know. I have reversed heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, no problem. But AFib specifically, I haven't worked with, so it would really depend where that's coming from. Some people have AFib because they have abnormal electrical conduct going through there. So again, and all vegan diets are not the same. I'm assuming when you say that you're talking about my specific healing protocol, it will get your heart as healthy as possible. And if your heart is super healthy and you're not having episodes, that's something to talk to your doctor about. Absolutely for the Sjogren's though. Sjogren's responds beautifully and quickly. Okay. Maja, should we start in the moment eating raw food or most slowly drop the toxic food? It's totally up to you. It's 6 steps. You can go as you want to. Some folks, if they dive in too quickly or they haven't worked their way up, let's say they go from McDonald's and potato chips to like green smoothies and raw foods and stuff, they usually go through a pretty tough detox. They're bloated and they're So I usually say, add the smoothies first and then start tapering off the other foods, and then you have an easier transition. I also recommend that you take a high-grade probiotic. I like Metagenics. That's the one I have on my website just because people are always asking me about probiotics, so I finally put it there for you guys. But I only use that one because I tested it and it worked, so I never went for another one. I just married it. It worked, so I stayed with it. But a high-grade probiotic can really help you in the transition. But you can jump in quickly or you can go slowly. It really depends on what you want to do. I know for a lot of folks who just want to dive in and get rid of the bad stuff, you can totally do that. Just understand it might take you a couple of weeks for your stomach to totally feel normal. You might feel kind of bloated at first, and that's totally normal and okay. You can also get some detox symptoms where you could get rashy, headachy, energy fluctuations. And it's just because you're releasing all these toxins all at once because your body suddenly just drops into an anti-inflammatory mode really quickly. So even though you're healing, you might feel kind of crummy for a week or two, depending on how you do it. Got to keep your water high to help flush all that out. Okay. Jerry, is tofu safe to eat if you're nearing menopause? Abso-freaking-lutely. They've actually shown that people who eat soy products, now unprocessed soy, processed soy is where the bad information comes from about, soy protein isolate. That's an inflammatory food because it's a processed food, not because it's soy. But tofu, tempeh, those are great. Soybeans or edamame, those are all really, really healthy for you and can protect you against cancer. And so that's really good. Yeah, absolutely. And I've known people who are plant-based or eating tofu who actually had much more gentle transition into menopause than people who are eating the other animal products. So it can actually help you. All right, what time is it? All right, answer a couple more. There's so many questions. I literally could do this all night, but I'm at my in-laws' house and people are gonna have to come in here and go to sleep. So I can't, let me just see if I can get a couple more. Let's see. All right, my mom was on blood thinner. She's been told to avoid foods like kale. What other kinds of greens can she use in her smoothies? Okay, Karina, what you're going to want to do is there's a couple things here. This one comes up a lot. If you're taking Coumadin, Coumadin's a blood thinner that actually, if you eat certain vegetables, it interferes with the action of that medicine. So the way you can go about it is my recommendation, what I prefer is, one, you ask them to switch her to a medication that doesn't have dietary restrictions. That used to only be injections, which is what I was taking originally. And that was one of the reasons that I took the injections was because I didn't want to limit my diet from vegetables. Like I wanted to eat good food, right? So, but now they have non-injectable pill form blood thinners. There's new pills on the market that are blood thinners that don't have the dietary restrictions. It's better to be on a pill without the dietary restrictions. If that's the only medicine she can take, work with her doctor, say, hey, she's going to be adding these foods to her diet for her health. But usually when you're on Coumadin, you check your blood once a week to make sure what your levels are. So you let them know, you raise it, you add a little bit of the smoothie, you check the level, they adjust the medication. Then you try a little more and they adjust the medication. So then you have to work with your doctor on it. It's not impossible. It just takes a little bit more work. Okay. And let's see if we can do, okay, let's see if we can do one more. Oh goodness, there's so many good questions. I don't want to limit. Okay, two more. Okay. Really quick, Lena, is this diet good for Lyme disease? Absolutely. There's 2 people in my group right now that have Lyme disease that is helping, and it absolutely is good for you. Lyme disease acts a lot like lupus. Your immune system is super active. We want to lower the inflammation. It'll help lower your pain levels, and it'll help your body have the ability to heal. That's all we're doing. I'm not saying kale is a medicine that heals you. It's just, and I'll teach you the healing foods in detail on Monday. It's about giving your body the foods it needs to do its job. So it just needs tools. You know, it's like if I ask you to take a screw out of something and I don't have any screwdrivers, and you're looking around the house trying to find the right butter knife that'll try to fit in there, right? You don't have the right tools. You can't do your job. This is all I'm teaching you is the tools. And then you just use those tools to help yourself heal. So it's absolutely helpful. And then Jennifer, should non-breastfeeding babies drink soy milk? This question, I'm not sure what you mean here. I don't want you to give them soy milk as a replacement for breast milk. The best thing a baby should have is breast milk, and human breast milk, not cow breast milk, not goat breast milk, human breast milk. Where do you get breast milk if you can't nurse your baby? There's milk banks, or my favorite, there's a website, write this down, Human Milk for Human Babies. It's on Facebook. And if you look for human milk for human babies, you choose your state. All the women who produce a ton of milk. So I produced enough milk to feed a whole village, tons of breast milk, and have 2 fat babies, right? So I donated my milk. So I would go on Human Milk for Human Babies, and I would write down, hey, anybody in Texas right now who needs milk, I've got a full freezer full. And I would get tons of messages back, and women would show up with coolers and just take my milk. And I used to get Christmas cards and stuff from people showing me pictures of their fat babies that got healthy on my milk. I was told mine was the gold standard because I'm, dairy-free, unprocessed, pesticide-free, free range, like the healthiest milk goes top shelf, right? So you can go on there, and even taking breast milk from someone who eats a crap diet is still better than giving them a processed formula that has corn syrup and cow milk and just horrible stuff to start a baby off. So if possible, use human breast milk as much as you can. Now, once they don't need breast milk anymore, so I gave both my kids breast milk until 2 years old. And the reason I did that is because that is when the little holes close. So in a baby's digestive tract, they have little holes in there that allows our antibodies, so our immune system antibodies, to go out of their stomach and into their bloodstream so that they can fight disease, because the kids don't make the antibodies yet, right? So that's really, really important. And so at 2 years old is when those holes all are finished closing off. And so I figured, well, at that point, if the antibodies aren't getting into the bloodstream anymore, then it's just a sugary milk now that they're just eating. And so that's not necessary anymore. And even by then, they were only having like 1 or 2 a day by the time they were, 2.5 for my second one. But it's just something to be aware of. And that's why they think that milk triggers type 1 diabetes, is all those holes in their gut is allowing milk protein into their bloodstream. And that's creating a situation where their budding, weak, confused little immune system is creating antibodies to the milk protein, and that can be triggering the confusion that can then trigger type 1 diabetes and all sorts of other problems that they develop as they get older. So it's just something to be aware of. So when my kids didn't need breast milk anymore, I didn't switch them to soy milk. I switched them to green smoothies. In fact, they started drinking green smoothies out of their bottles at 6 months old. So that was what they transitioned to, because you're using breast milk to nourish them, right? Well, cow milk doesn't nourish them, and soy milk doesn't add any vitamins or minerals or anything. If you want to keep nourishing them, switch them to green smoothies. My kids love green smoothies. We all have them for breakfast. I'm going to teach you all about that on Monday. So don't worry about that. Okay. I could do this all night, but my children need to get to bed, and I'm using the guest room. So I'm going to get going. Don't worry. I'm going to see you all here again on Monday at 7 p.m. And if I didn't answer your question this time, we're going to do another Q&A on Monday. And then the following Thursday, I'm going to do another Q&A. And by that point, I hope I've answered all of your questions. All I want for you is to get yourself healthy. That's all I want. That's why I teach this information for free. I want you to be able to get the health that you deserve. I want you to understand this information. So the cool thing is, you're going to get an email probably later tonight that's going to have a link to this. So you can watch this again if you want and relearn the information. And I want you to do the homework. Start writing down what you eat and where the foods that are making you sick are showing up in your diet. Realize how much of it are you eating, and how do you think that's actually impacting your health. And that way on Monday, when we start talking about healing foods, you'll already have it in your mindset and be ready to make some really awesome changes so that you can then be the next success story that lives an amazing, vibrant, healthy life, which is what I want you to do. I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight. I hope you learned a ton. And if you find you have more questions, bring them with you next Monday. I'll be happy to answer them. Until then, have an amazing Father's Day to you fathers out there. And I look forward to seeing you next time. I love you guys. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are awesome. I'll see you next time. Good night.